Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 5th, 2018. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to contractual negotiations and personnel?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Hi, Lisa.
Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for February 5th, 2018. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by Mia and Cameron, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, Dr. Hatter, it looks like Brookside has come to share good news with us tonight, huh?
This is so wonderful. I see a lot of my friends from Brookside. Hi, boys and girls. So we have some of our second grade students here today to talk about one of the wonderful STEAM projects that they participated in, and it's titled A Chair for My Mother. And at this point in the program, I'm going to turn it over to Brookside School Principal, Mrs. Ammerling. Mrs. Ammerling, welcome.
Hello, thank you. It's nice to be here. Good evening, Ms. Carbone, Dr. Hatter, members of the board. Before I begin, I do just want to say congratulations to Ms. Roll for your appointment to the board. It's so nice, and thank you so much already in advance for your time, dedication, and commitment to our students and our schools. Brookside is always so happy to be here to present good news. Tonight, as Dr. Hatter shared, it is with our second grade students, and some of their teachers are here to present one of their STEAM units. Each grade level at Brookside has planned for 2 grade level units in STEAM, and this was their first one. It was really their introduction into STEAM. So we're so proud of the work that they did. We hope you enjoy it. I am going to turn it over to our fearless STEAM leader and library media specialist, Ms. Renee Menzie.
Good evening, everyone. As Ms. Ammerling said, this has been an exciting year of exploring, introducing students to the design process in our new lab. And in our exploration of ways to incorporate this design challenge and the steps of the process into our curriculum, we found that so many wonderful projects can begin with the quality literature we already have. There is no better example of empathy than A Chair for My Mother. The children will go into much more detail about the various steps of the process and their first design challenge. And afterwards, we will invite you to go and discuss their actual designs with them, why they designed them the way they did, with someone in mind. Thank you so much. And without further ado, we're going to get started.
Hello, my name is Siddharth, and I'm from Mr. Richardson's class.
My name is Emily, and I'm from Mr. Richardson's class.
My name is Dominic, and I'm from Mrs. Brancati's class.
My name is Ella, and I'm from Miss Larson, Miss Nicoletti, and Miss Bellinger's class.
My name is Mia, and I'm from Mrs. Brancati's class.
My name is Sophie, and I'm from Miss Larson, Miss Bellinger, and Miss Nicoletti's class.
My name is Micah, and I'm from Mrs. Foley's class.
My name is Cameron, and I'm from Mrs. Foley's class.
My name is Anna, and I'm from Mr. Giatrax's class.
My name is James, and I'm from Mr. Giatractus's class.
What would happen if your family had a fire that destroyed everything in your home? In this classic, award-winning story, we had a chance to explore true empathy and begin learning about the steps of the design process, too. Our new STEAM lab was the perfect place to begin the journey. We would like to share our journey with you tonight. The book we read was called A Chair for My Mother by Viera Williams. In the story, a little girl and her mom lost everything in a fire. They stayed with relatives until they could find a new apartment to move into. Neighbors and friends generously gave them things of their own homes, like dishes, a bed, a table, but they still needed many things, like comfy living room furniture. They saved every bit of Mama's tips from her job as a waitress, and even Grandma, Uncle Sandy, and the little girl add to the jar when they can.
Finally, after more than a year, the jar was full, and they could wrap up the change and change them for $10 bills at the bank. After shopping in 4 different stores, they finally found the perfect chair. Now, after a long day of waitressing, Mama can rest with the little girl in her comfortable new chair.
After discussing all the ways the characters in Viera Williams' story showed empathy, it was time for us to get to work. We were going to design our own special chair for a special person in our life.
We learned about the design process, which is just a set of steps to follow when we are trying to design or build something to solve a problem. The first step is to always ask about the problem. Our problem was to build or design a chair. We need to ask ourselves who we were going to build a chair for.
The second step of the process is to brainstorm or imagine all the things the person would like in a chair. Empathy for that person and what they need is an important part of the steps. Next, we begin to plan out our design, and after looking at our materials we had to work with, we made a drawing of our design, and we made a list of our materials we plan to use.
Then it was time to build or create our design. Many of us found that we had to make changes to our design idea when something didn't work the way we expected it to.
Since we were making a model, the person we designed the chair for couldn't actually test it, but we could look at our final designs and think of ways to improve them. We learned that designers and inventors may go through the steps of the design process many, many times before they are happy with their work.
Every student shared their final design with their classmates and explained why the person they built the chair for would like their design. We also kept a journal, writing about each step of the design process. At this time, we would like to invite the board members to come and share our design and our feelings as we work on our very first STEAM project.
Okay, aren't they?
Ginger was getting them back.
Yes. Those
All right.
chairs were absolutely amazing. Wow, boys and girls, all of your work and your designs, and also equally impressively, your public speaking, the way you spoke to all of the adults who came by to ask about your projects. I'll speak for everyone up here when I say we were very impressed with all of you boys and girls, your projects, your thinking, the way you spoke. Bravo to you. Well done. So I will turn the program over to Mrs. Ammerling. I just first want to acknowledge all of the Brookside faculty that are here. Thank you so much for coming out and for your support. This doesn't just happen. There's strong teaching faculty behind all of the work that happens, and strong administration, and Mr. Casarini and Ms. Ammerling. So thank you for all of your work in leading this in the building, and I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Ammerling.
Thank you, Dr. Hatter, and thank you again to the board, and thank you for coming over and asking questions. We are so proud of our students, all of our students at Brookside, but to see how the second grade students really went through this long design process, learned each step, really were dedicated, they persevered. Sometimes when it was very, very frustrating, they went back to their design, they made changes, they stuck with it till they saw it to its end. So we are so proud of them, and they did a great job presenting tonight. I do just want to recognize some of the faculty that are here tonight. One, I do want to thank my assistant principal, Mr. Casarini. He was very helpful in putting this together, as well as Ms. Sharon DeBrino, one of our first grade teachers. And I do just want to recognize and ask you to stand, because we have a fabulous team over here with us. Mrs. Larson, Mrs. Brancati, Ms. Grieve, Ms. Foley, and Ms. Moralia. Thank you for coming out. And just want to say thank you to our wonderful parents for bringing the students back out tonight. We know it's cold and it's late, and they probably have some homework to do. But thank you so much. You really are just great partners with Brookside, and we just really, truly appreciate you. So again, thank you to the board for having us, and we look forward to at least having one more good news with you this year. Have a good night.
Thank you. We're just going to stop for 5 minutes so they can clear out. We're just going to cut for 5 minutes. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. We are so proud of Brookside. We're up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak on agenda-related items only? No? Okay, so we can move on to our superintendent's report.
Well, that Brookside presentation is going to be a tough act to follow. So, Mr. Cole, for your budget presentation, I'm sorry, but that's a tough act to follow. They were just absolutely wonderful. So, New York State School Boards Association visited with our district a couple months back, and they were very impressed with the eSteam initiative that's happening, and they travel high and low throughout New York State, and they've yet to find an eSteam program in the state. They were impressed. They came back and ran a video feature on the district featuring this idea of eSteam. It was released last week, and we're so proud of it. NYSBA only runs 20 or so of these features throughout the school year and across 700 school districts. It's quite an accomplishment to be featured at the state level. So at this point, I'd like to present to our community the just brief 2-minute and 27-second clip of our featured in NYSBA News.
NYSBA News is supported by the New York Schools Insurance Reciprocal. The belief at the Yorktown Heights Central School District is that compassion and empathy are best learned at a young age. That's why 11 years ago they adopted a character-building philosophy in their school community, and that has earned them recognition as a National District of Character ever since. Recently, the district went a step further and created the first ever Empathy Plus STEAM, or eSTEAM, program.
We've always been encouraged to incorporate STEAM in our activities. We've been doing it for a couple of years. Empathy runs everything that believes in STEAM, and he came up with the coin e-STEAM, but it's part of incorporating all of our character education, all of our empathy building into our STEAM program.
The district believes that through empathy, students can better understand and visualize solutions to problems.
Children need to understand first what it is like to experience a natural disaster and lose all of your belongings, and how immediate that problem is to someone before they can begin to design authentic solutions to support that.
Here in Yorktown Heights, students routinely express empathy as they share classrooms and labs designed in an open format. They learn that sharing resources opens the door to empathy.
We're learning a lot about growth mindset, and a part of that is teamwork, I guess, and just being positive and working together.
Sharing a favorite chair with a classmate is a simple yet powerful expression of empathy. It's through these experiences that students understand and bring empathy into their STEAM problem solving.
As the children grow into the 21st century, I felt that they needed an environment closer to their home environment to learn. So I started picking up pieces at garage sales, and I noticed that the children gravitated towards those pieces more, and they all wanted to sit in them, and they were learning better and actually working together better.
Bringing in that empathy piece, that helps the children even when they're working in their groups. They think of those, they keep going back to that. They're showing empathy with listening to each other's design.
I'm Casey Nicholson for NYSBA News.
So it truly dovetails what the Brookside presentation was, and that really, what we saw this evening from our students at Brookside really captures the principles of e-STEAM perfectly. So we're excited about this journey. We're still in the very early stages of this journey, but it's an exciting one nonetheless. So there are just a few other items. There's some great things happening, and I'll focus these next few events on our band and orchestral programs. The swing dance is February 10th, 7 p.m. in the high school gymnasium. It should be wonderful. I'm looking forward to getting some lessons on dancing and showing that, in fact, I don't have two left feet. Bandapalooza is coming up. That's February 26th. That's a 6 p.m. start time. That also will be in the high school gymnasium. That should be wonderful. It's followed by a 7:15 board meeting. So the board was kind enough to accommodate the Bandapalooza event, and they've adjusted their start time by 15 minutes. And the district-wide orchestral festival is February 28th at 7 p.m. So some wonderful things are happening in our band and orchestra programs, and we welcome the community to any and all of these events. At this point, we're ready for our second in a series of 7 budget presentations. So the first, which was last week, just really told the district story, and it painted a picture of our district. Tonight, we actually will delve into athletics and co-curriculars, and Mr. Cole will be delivering this evening's presentation. So at this point, I'll turn the program over to Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Dr. Hatter, and good evening, everybody. Tonight's presentation of the athletics and co-curricular budgets is, as Dr. Hatter mentioned, the second in a series of 7 budget informational sessions. This process will culminate on April 16th with the presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget to the Board of Education. There'll be 2 more sessions in addition to this series, the budget adoption and budget hearing, a total of 9 sessions where the public can weigh in on the proposed budget before the budget vote on May 15th. We're going to begin this evening with the athletics budget. The Director of Athletics is responsible for 70 employees under his area of responsibility. The Director has supervisory responsibilities regarding the physical education teachers throughout the district, K through 12. The department includes the Director, an administrative assistant, a full-time trainer, and 67 coaches that cover all 3 high school seasons. New in the 2018-19 school year and included in the 18-19 proposed budget is a stipend position to the assistant director with supervisory and administrative needs in each season. Student participation is projected here on this chart for 2018-19. The number of teams and coaches is not expected to change from the current year. Again, we are projecting that all 67 teams will run and that all 67 coaches will be necessary. The student participation numbers are a function of the gross enrollment numbers currently by season, adjusted for a very slight decline in enrollment overall in the high school. The number of students includes students participating in more than one sport throughout the year. All of the budget figures that follow this evening are based on these assumptions. We like to present the cost for per each season, primarily to demonstrate the relative equity of the budget allocation. Increases projected for next year are related to slight increases in the transportation costs and the cost of individual game management. Game management includes the cost of timekeepers and other game-related functions such as supervision and, when required, a security presence at various events. Here's a breakdown of each sport by season. It ties in directly to the preceding charts. Note that not every sport has 3 levels, that is freshman, junior varsity, and varsity. In fact, most sports are limited to just 2 levels, junior varsity and varsity. Here's a summary snapshot of the current year fall sports season. The last column represents the cost of transportation, which, after coaching salaries, is the largest element of cost within the athletics budget. Here's that same chart for the actual results in our winter sports season. 3 teams represented on this chart, the boys hockey team, the boys swim and dive team, and the gymnastics team, have been combined with teams from neighboring districts due to decreased participation. The spring season snapshot is represented here. The current year spring season numbers are projections. This chart's a summary of some of the Scholar Athlete Awards for individuals and teams and the Individual Athlete Recognition Awards. We're extremely proud that 635 of our student athletes and 28 of our teams have been recognized for scholar status and earned the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Scholar Athlete School of Excellence Award. 64 of our class of 2017 athletes received the Superintendents Award for maintaining a minimum GPA of 3.5. Here is the summary of the proposed budget for 2018 and 19 for the athletics department. We expect the total budget to rise by approximately $10,000 or 0.85%. Supervision costs rise due to the aforementioned seasonal stipend position to assist the athletic director and an increase to the pre-event wage or per event wage applicable to supervision in general. That wage had not increased in that last 18 years. The contractual expense rises due primarily to the proposed purchase of a Huddle software system used to support team instruction. Next, we'll talk a bit about co-curricular activities in both the high school and middle school. Here's a summary of the various clubs offered to students in the high school. In total, more than 1,400 students participate in these clubs. Students can, and often do, participate in more than one club, so the 1,400 students represented here are not unique students, just the total participation. Clubs that are newly offered are indicated with an asterisk on this chart. When new clubs are proposed, they are run without compensation to the teacher advisor. Here's the same chart for the middle school. Total participation in grades 6 through 8 is roughly 700 students. New clubs, again, are labeled here. However, new clubs are not piloted here as in the high school. The supervisory dollars paid to teachers are reassigned each year to the clubs that are active. Each budget season, we provide a list of new clubs running in the high school as of the current school year. New clubs are run on a pilot basis, as mentioned, with no stipends attached to them. If participation warrants, they may run as a permanent clubs in subsequent years, but without increasing the overall money spent on all of the clubs. This chart represents the clubs that had been running in the past but are no longer active. The total budget for co-curricular activities is expected to rise by $6,500 or 2.64%. The $3,000 increase in the Destination Imagination line is directly offset by a reduction of $3,000 in the curriculum section of the budget. This is simply a reclassification of cost. The secondary performing arts line rises to account for the cost of the dance performance. You may remember that we moved the total cost and total revenue from gate receipts for the dance company into the performing arts line in 2017-18. Now that we have actual experience with the different elements of cost, we can safely project a more accurate number. Just a reminder of the budget presentation series dates. The third presentation in our series will take place on February 12th. Topics of discussion that evening will be the debt service and transportation sections of the budget. We thank you for your attention to this presentation. We have representatives from the athletics department, the middle school and high school. They'll be here to field your questions in depth and in detail. And if you have any questions, we'll be glad to field them now.
Okay, can we invite them up? Anthony, can you come sit next to me? We can let them all sit there. I know you do. And then we can invite everybody to come sit up here. And Pete, maybe we could. Yeah, and then we can let everybody sit there. Does that make sense? Okay. No, they're coming up. It could feel important.
I think we're okay.
Hello, Anthony. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and thank you in advance for all this hard work, because I know the budget doesn't happen in a vacuum. We can start with questions. Pete, you want to start with a question?
Tom, you mentioned the software, the increase on the contractual for, what is that new software?
Rob, would you like to take that?
Sure, absolutely. So Huddle is basically an assistant to the coach in a sense. What it does is it allows game film to be downloaded, and then you can do a ton of things with that film, such as tendencies, just offensive plays, defensive plays, and it's used for practice time. So for instance, if you can get opponents' film. You can also give opponents your film. In football, that's common practice, but for basketball, it's not, where a coach will go and tape a game and then download it onto their software and then be able to send it to the individual kids via their iPad or whatever technology device they have, and they can watch the game and now start to break down an opponent, see what their tendencies are and those types of things. You could do replay during a football game. There's so much you could do with it, and it's the best part about it is it could be for every sport. So for instance, if I'm a baseball coach or a softball coach, I can videotape an athlete pitching, we'll say, all right, as one of them. I can break down a pitcher where I can videotape her or him, put it down on the computer, and then go back over it with them to show where they need help, assistance, whether their arm is in the right place or whatever they're not finishing, whatever the case may be. Again, I'm not a baseball guy for the most part, but you can do that as simple as something like that, or you can, for football purposes, see that they run to the right 75% of the time. So, instead of the old days where you go and meet somebody, in Albany to get a tape, now everything is downloaded through the computer and sent via email. It's really a nice system for all the coaches.
Does it allow for tagging, or is it just strictly video replays on it?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Does it allow for tagging the stuff so you can actually put information and download
yes,
the information?
Yeah. And one of the nice features about it is that you can actually do highlight films. In a sense, for recruiting purposes. So or the end of the year dinner awards, those types of things. So there's some added extra features that allow you to assist kids in different ways, other than not just their mechanics.
Other than the cost of the software, is there training that is required or needed, or?
No, nothing that would be cost prohibitive. Yeah, no, it's pretty simple kind of stuff. If coaches are technologically sound, they can kind of pick up on it relatively quick. But the football coaches are my kind of go-to guys, I would say, to a coach, go see the football coaches, because they're using every aspect of that kind of program.
Are most of the teams having videotape? I know basketball videotapes. I'm not aware that baseball does. I know football does, but do
they
all
don't
the teams?
Currently, but the hope is, and again, I did a survey to see if they wanted it, and people have said, yes, if I have it, I can certainly use it. But there are sports that use it a tremendous amount.
So there'll be cameras available for any coach that wants to
Yeah,
be
we have
able to use
cameras
it?
already. That's one thing we won't have to purchase, is that we have some cameras coaches are willing to share, and then that kind of stuff, and they're in different seasons, so it kind of works itself out.
And Rob, what are you doing now within the department for this technology? Do you have any access to it now?
Well, the coaches do. They're finding ways to do it, whether it's through fundraising or they've been sharing with the YAC, which is leads to some issues in itself. So that's kind of why we're moving away from that idea. So that, and then it's the haves and the have-nots. We want everybody to have access to this type of technology so that they can have the same kind of success that some teams are having with it.
Very cool. Anthony, you have a question?
Just one question. I'm excited about the participation of all the clubs in the high school. So many kids go. It's fantastic. I was just wondering if there's any new ones in the pipeline and if there's the guidelines to start a new club.
The page that indicates the piloted clubs, those are basically, we test them for a year to make sure they have sustainability. If the numbers run, then we'll certainly have that the following year. And the nice thing when students come in, and they're student-generated clubs of interest that they have, when they come in to kind of present something to me, you'll look at the grade levels that they're currently in, and that you'll have students that will be not having all seniors. You want some 9th through 11th graders, again, so they come back next year and keep the club going.
It's amazingly successful, all of the clubs. I mean, if you look at all of them, they have at least 10 students in them, and some of them have 30. So it's really impressive. That's very nice to see.
Rashmi?
Sorry, I think you answered one of my questions about the clubs. So the ones that are being piloted this year, the plan is to continue with them for next year if the numbers are good, right?
Absolutely, that's the hope.
And then the ones that are not running this year, are we going to reevaluate that?
We do it twice a year, mid-year and end of year. And then certainly when we come back in the fall, we'll take a look at where those numbers are just to make some decisions. And we kind of use the September 30th deadline to see what we're going to run and what we're not going to run. And by then, we've had grade level assemblies, we've talked to students, we've talked to the advisors, we've gone through the recruitment, and we can measure if it's been successful or not.
Great, thank you.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I don't know if Tom or Rob wanted to answer this, but you had talked a little bit about the seasonal assistant position. Can you tell us a little bit more about the position, what that person does, what the stipend is, and just some more information about it?
Sure. The one thing that I would say about that position that excited me was that it was going to give me an opportunity to get out and see all the sports. Sometimes we get pigeonholed into boys basketball, girls basketball, football, and because those are big events where there might be a lot of people, we want to make sure that they're safe. When you have an extra set of eyes, there's certain things that I can get away from to be able to go see. You know, I hate to say the off-campus things like gymnastics, hockey, track even, so that people can see, hey, the athletic director comes out. And I got to say that it's been really nice of all the parents coming up to me saying that, thank you so much for coming, and I'm like, this is my job, but they recognize that I am able to get out, and that's strictly because of that particular position. Of course, there's other things that I'm always doing, whether it's in meetings or those types of things. So having an extra person that could be a contact person for the coaches that need a ball that, an extra ball or a backup jersey or those types of things is nice to have that person that can do that. But at any particular event, that person can be there to kind of be the extra set of eyes and make sure that event goes off safely, which, if you watch the news and you see events that don't go off safely, something I'm trying desperately to avoid in that sense. And it's nice to have that person to be able to kind of assist with that as well. And then aside from that, they do some scheduling, like practice scheduling. They'll do it on the website because, coaches are constantly changing and that kind of stuff. So they're able to help with that kind of piece as well.
And what's the stipend for that position?
$10,000, although it is apportioned per season, but for the entire year, the apportionment's $10,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa?
Yeah, Tom, in your presentation, you talked about the change of the DECO funding. Can you just refresh our recollection as to what that was and how that went over this year?
Sure, very good question, because it goes to some of the oversight from the external auditor that had been going on for a few years. The dance company was a rather independently funded organization. They would fundraise, charge gate receipts for their performances. The money would go through the extra classroom fund and would be used to support the performance. Our external auditor indicated to us several years ago that he would like to see all of those things taken under the district's umbrella. So last year, we incorporated that into the operating budget. Instead of turning over the gate receipts to the club, the district keeps the gate receipts, and then the full funding of the program goes into our operating budget. So we now have 1 year's worth of experience under our belt. So there's a slight increase in the budget for 2018-19 to account for what we believe are all the variables necessary. But it was very successful, wouldn't you say, Mrs. O'Shea and Dr. Hatter? I think we did a good job in the first year of bringing it in-house, and it helps us with the compliance for the auditor's findings.
Well, a couple of questions. The uniform line item went up. Are you projecting more uniforms, more reconditioned uniforms? Did they get beaten up too much this year? What was the reasoning for the increase in the line item?
Sure. So unfortunately, things are getting more expensive and they're not making them as well. And this isn't a new trend. Even at the place I was previously, we noticed that uniforms, in the old days, it was they last 4 years or 5 years, and then they get handed down to the JV, which they get another 4 years out of that. We don't see that happening. We're actually buying uniforms for JV on their own, and then buying the varsity as well, trying to stagger those so that at any one given year, the budget isn't blowing up, in that line. So we're trying, that's really kind of where it's boiling down to, is that they're just not making uniforms as well, and they're not lasting as long, and they're more expensive, unfortunately.
And is that because of the brands? Because we have to go out to a public bid for it, and we don't get to choose the brands, because there are better brands that would last
Yeah,
longer?
no, we actually get to choose the brand, then the bid would be on that particular brand. So if we wanted Under Armour basketball jerseys, for example, there would be 3 bids from 3 different vendors. But at the end of the day, I don't care if it's Nike or Under Armour, they're just not being made as well as they are. The old days, it was the tackle twill with the sewing. Now everything is sublimated, and it just doesn't last as long, unfortunately.
Okay, thank
I
you.
wish it did.
Yeah, I wish it did too. Pete, any more questions?
I do.
Yeah.
Tom, with the presentation, the asterisk means a club coming on, or?
The asterisk indicates a club that is new.
That's new for this year, that's actually being funded?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, just, and my numbers may be off a little bit, I noticed there's like maybe 6 or 7 clubs coming on between middle school and high school?
Yes.
But there's probably 24 going off?
Yes.
Is there the offset in the cost of that? I couldn't.
Yes, in total, both the high school and the middle school, and Mr. Shilen from the middle school and Mr. DeGennaro from the high school can talk specifically about it. There's an apportionment of units. Each unit has a monetary value, and those units get apportioned to different clubs based on their the administration and whatever committee in the school they have, the apportionment metric that they use. But the overall cost of the total in the aggregate of the co-curricular units does not change from year to year. So even though some are coming, some are going, they'll never be any higher than they were in the previous year.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So even though 24 went off and 5 came on, it's cost neutral?
That's correct.
Okay. My lot?
Oh, go ahead, yeah, go ahead. No, go.
It's a different question.
You can ask a different question, go ahead.
When you look at and maybe you mentioned this and I just missed it. When you look at the secondary performing arts, the budget's 75,000, and we spent 40 this year. And
We spent 40 in 2016.
in 2016.
Right.
Okay, and are we on track to spend the budget amount in 17, 18? Is that
Yes.
why it went up to the same amount?
Yes, in 16, 17, when we spent $40,000, the dance company performance was not included in the budget. It was paid for out of extra classroom funds. That performance alone is $22,500, I believe, in 2018-19. So we are on track to spend to exhaust the entire budget this year. So we've done, it's a very meticulously planned out budget with the performing arts and the musical department people, and it's very well done. You're welcome.
You cool, Rashmi?
Just a quick question on the DI salaries line item. Is that across the district or just in?
That's across the district.
Okay.
Yes, $17,000. We didn't spend anywhere near that last year. I think we spent just under 15, 14.6 actually, we spent last year.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
it includes all the levels of competition, whether it's local, state, national.
All right. Thanks.
Cheryl?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Lisa?
I'm fine, thank you.
I just one clarifying question, because you list robotics in a club, but there's no line item in the budget detail. Where's the line item so that robotics is funded?
The robotics, the cost of the stipend to pay for supervision and the administration of robotics, you'll see that in teacher salaries. That's not paid through the co-curricular units, but we list it here because it is technically a club this current year. The support for robotics and other in STEAM and E-STEAM related items, you'll see in the instructional portion of the budget.
Okay, all right. And then I just, under the clubs, again, the criteria for the number of students, the minimum number of students for middle school and high school, have we changed that, or are we still, these numbers I'm assuming are day one of the club when everybody shows up? What happens towards the end when?
Well, we've seen, as the year goes on, an actual increase, more over than a decrease in the number. Because I'll go to a club and then I'll go to my friend, you got to really join this club. It's a great club. So I would say more often than not, we'd have an increase in students. But our goal is to have, in the past, it's always been 12 and above, 15, students to, and similar to as Mr. DeGennaro was saying, we look at, if it's a brand new club, we look at it for a year and see how it goes. And I meet with every teacher who runs a club at the end of the school year. They have an evaluation process we go through, and so we keep a close eye on the clubs.
I know you do.
And the middle school club is student-driven too?
Yes.
Is that really?
Well, yes and no. A lot of the teachers come to me at the beginning of the year and say, Scott, I have this great idea. What do you think? And, we'll talk. Marie and I will talk about the club and see, if the interest is there. And we really like to give it a shot. There was one club that really did quite well. It's Budding Chefs with Mrs. Gann, Mrs. Guidotti, Mrs. Epstein, just to cite a new club. And it's really done very well.
So it's the same model as the high school? I didn't even see you sitting in the corner over there. I would ask the same, so it's the same model as the high school, the clubs?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't realize that. And you have 700 students. All my notes are over there. But I believe it was 700 students participating in your clubs?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's fantastic. And it's a little more driven also by the teachers because of their age, I would imagine.
The teachers will come to me with an interest that they have and present their rationale for running the club.
Congratulations. The participation is amazing in both the middle school and the high school. That's fantastic. Thank you.
One other question, student accident insurance is down by a lot. Is that driven by our lack of any claims?
Well, it's driven primarily by our loss experience over the last 3 years. If you notice on that line item, I think I provided the board with some detail of the previous year's cost. Last year, we spent $8,500. This year, we're on track to spend about $9,700. We had budgeted $18,000. So our loss experience has been outstanding. And Rob, do you want to expand on that? Because we did have a discussion about some of the measures we've taken internally to help reduce our exposure in this area.
Sure. So when we just had that discussion, I immediately thought of the fact that we have a full-time trainer, and that some of the preventative stuff is going on before the season, but also when an injury does occur, how quickly they're being tended to by the trainer. The follow-up is immense, and they're able to kind of prevent that next step where they have to go to the doctor and MRIs and all those types of things that a follow-up after an injury has been diagnosed. So he's really good. I got to say, I have parents from other districts call me and say, he told me the injury, I didn't believe it, took the kid to the doctor, and in fact, it was a broken arm. I've had that happen, I think, twice now in the last several months. So I got my hats off to Dave and having a full trainer, and I know the benefits now, having not had one where I previously was, to having somebody who can do the follow-up care, the talking with the parents, the continuity of seeing the kid every day and not having to hand it off to an outside type of person. So I think, in talking with Tom, about this, that's adding to that cost going down, but also the care of our kids has increased, I think, from having a full-time trainer.
Yeah, if I might just expand on that, just the ability to have baseline concussion data available.
Yep.
Even some of the rehabilitation for minor injuries that is done here in the district, as opposed to having to go outside for that. I think all those things lend to some of the experience that we've been having over the last several years.
But when does our accident insurance kick in? Because isn't parents' insurance primary?
It is. But we do have exposure up to the point, to the extent that an individual's family's coverage ends, student accident insurance will kick in.
And so Dave's being there to help prevent the injuries, or what's?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Or if he's able to do some of the physical rehabilitation himself in our fitness center here, which I've seen on a number of occasions, that too can ease the financial burden to a family to have to do that.
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions?
Jack, just
Go for it.
one more. With regards to athletic trips, that includes just back and forth to games and the anticipation of going to beyond just regular scheduled games also? Like if you go to
playoffs and such
playoffs,
stuff.
the state tournament, or?
Yeah, I mean, we have sectional, I think the way that, this is the way I developed here, and Tom, maybe if historically you'd be able to do that, but when I developed my previous budget, it was through the sectional final. And then after that, we kind of figured it out in a sense of what we would do after that. But that's really kind of the thought process with all of the sports, that you'll go through, a final, to a final.
Exactly. The athletic trips are serviced by several providers. Number one, we have a contractual obligation with Bauman and Sons Bus Company. They handle the majority of the athletic trips. But to the extent that they cannot supply buses based on the number of buses we need in a particular day, we do have outside sources as well. Some buses that require undercarriage storage, the ski team and things of that nature, will use a couple of other lines that we have already vetted that meet insurance requirements and satisfy bidding requirements and things like that. But for the most part, it's handled by our provider, Bauman.
But if we budget through the sectional finals, we had quite a few teams going to the state tournament that were outside of this region. Where does the funds for that come into play?
So for instance, we had the football team go to Syracuse this fall. We have to find the money within the budget in order to compensate that. Now, typically, what happens is that the budget for athletic trips is done in the year before, like we're doing it for 18-19. We typically have some wiggle room. But in this particular year, what we did is we used excess extra classroom funds from prior years based on the guidance from our external auditor to supplant student activities such as that.
Okay, I have one more question. Teams, you have 3 teams now that are merged with other school districts. Is the anticipation that that will continue into next year? Are there any other plans for any other teams to merge, or do we have full participation in the ones that are going to go forward?
So as of right now, it would be the status quo. The teams that are merged would continue with their mergers. We don't project any others having to merge at this point, although some are teetering, but there's still, we think the numbers will be good enough to just have a Yorktown team as opposed to having to merge.
Okay. Anything else? Huh? Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for, guys, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to add anything, or are we good?
No, I think I'll stay.
You going to stay right there? You can stay there.
Yeah, I don't feel like getting up and down.
That's fine. All right. So we should move on. Are you, anything more in the superintendent, or are we good? We can go on to personnel? Okay. Personnel budget. Area. Okay, upon recommendation of the superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. We have, under certified personnel, we have part-time academic intervention teacher change in hours, teaching assistant reassignment. We have after-school ENL program assignments, addition to the superintendent list, other compensation. Under classified personnel, we have an appointment to civil service. We have the resignation of Paul Anderson, who was our senior custodian here in this building, and a resignation of Lori Schumacher, who was in the high school for many years.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Want to say?
Just a thank you to Lori for her many years of service. She's been such a valuable member of our team, and she always, in the short time I've known her, she's always greeted me with the biggest smile and just always so pleasant, so we'll certainly miss her. And best of luck to Paul Anderson, who's moving on to a new position in another district, and we wish him well.
Yeah, we thank him for these chairs, right, Tom? We'll go over to policy. A motion to approve the second reading and adoption of the following policies. We have 1721 student teaching and internships, 1800 gifts in the public, 1925 interpreters for the hearing impaired parents, 9130 sexual harassment of employees, 9140.1 staff complaints and grievances.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Special education placements. A motion to arrange the following special education placements as of February 5th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations. At the high school, $2,000 from the Yorktown High School PTSA for a senior day speaker, Matt Valance. $16 from the New York Life Your Cause payroll match to Yorktown High School, and Crampon, $500 from the Crampon PTA for the E-STEAM lab.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're up to board comments. Lisa, I'll start with you. Sorry. I could go around. You want to start with Pete?
No, it's fine. I just want to say how much I enjoyed the Brookside presentation this evening, how articulate each of those students were and the projects they put together. It was really the highlight of my day today. I spend my day in an office and a courtroom talking to lawyers all day, and those students could put them to shame. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, I echo what Lisa said about the Brookside presentation. Always enjoyable to see the students come out and to see all the great work that they're doing with E-STEAM, and that empathy piece is really something that they are, I don't know if it's, well, it's second nature to them now, because when you're asking them questions about, why the design or why the color or this, they're very in tune to, what the person, maybe it was a parent that they designed for their favorite color, or they needed something because they liked their legs to be up, or whatever it was, or the father was tall, so he needed a tall chair. So that's all the empathy piece, and that's really nice to see. So it was a great presentation.
I agree. It's always nice to see the littlest children here presenting their ideas. I did tell a couple of them, when they make those chairs in life size, I will find them because I want them. So they were that cool.
Yeah. Always the highlight of the board time is to see the kids, and haven't figured out who was the top one just yet. It's still going on in my mind. I have some leads, but the ones that bring food will be the top one, so you know. And I just want to congratulate you on the East team. Fantastic being the first, fantastic what you're doing with the East team and the empathy part of it. All the kids seem to be grasping that, which is probably the lead of what's going to go on in the 21st century now, is being kind and nice, and leads to being smart and successful. So congratulations. Keep going ahead.
No, and I was going to mention that too, Anthony, with East Team. It really is amazing how much traction it's built over in a very short period of time. The branding that's gone on is admirable, and it's really cool to see where that's going to go. And then really the second thing was great presentation on the athletics and co-curricular. When I look at how you can already see the administration is looking at keeping the costs down, a $1.2 million budget, and it was roughly less than 1% increase. Kudos to you guys for looking at them. Looking forward to the rest of them.
Yeah, thank you for, and all the administrators have come out. We thank you for coming in, being so patient all these weeks while we go over the budget. But it's important because we really want to hear your thoughts and your ideas as we put this together and make sure that it encompasses everything that's necessary for our kids and still manages what the taxpayer can handle. So we really appreciate it, and the kids are always special, so we thank you for bringing them out. We thank the teachers for coming out, and thank you, Tom, Lisa, and Ron for putting together the budget and working so hard on it, and what do you guys got to say? And we're done.
So seeing the Brookside students talk about the design process and talk about eSTEAM and talk about how they're tying their literature into what they're doing, I just want to share that I had an opportunity today, along with Ms. Hatta George and Mrs. Horowitz, along with several of our teachers, to attend a conference at the UN, which was on STEAM education and global citizenship around the United Nations Sustainability Goals. And the United Nations Sustainability Goals is something that we had introduced to our Curriculum Council about 1.5 years ago. Addressing all of those issues that are globally relevant is something that is very meaningful for us and really lends to the eSTEAM model in terms of empathy. To be able to watch today from 5 countries, high school students present design thinking projects that they had worked on, and then to come and see our second graders doing the beginning part of that kind of learning and exploration was really tied it all together, and it was a great day for me professionally, and it was just so rewarding to see our young learners doing the same thing. Great.
So there's no question it's an exciting time as we design our budget. It's a very delicate balance that we're striking. It's what's best for children and obviously putting our children first and making sure that they get a world-class education, but it's also demonstrating sensitivity to the taxpayer. And that's really important for us as well, and we'll strike that balance as we develop the remaining parts of the budget. With regard to eSTEAM, it's a team lift. It's everyone here. It's all the people out there who are sitting in the audience and my colleagues here at the dais. We're all working together, and there is just such power in the coherence of our vision. And the students are benefiting. NYSBA featured us. The Journal News will be visiting Mrs. Horowitz building later on this week. They're coming to Mohansick, and we have some other media outlets that want to learn more about eSTEAM. So we welcome them, and the teachers and children. The children have become pros at it. They love to show off all their good work. So it's an exciting time to be part of the district.
Well, we want to just thank you because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So it's the leadership up here, and the leadership that's sitting in the audience that's bringing the teachers along, that's helping the students to be the best that they can be. So we appreciate everything you do. So thank you for that. Public comment, anybody wishing to speak? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good night, everyone.